All right, folks, let's get started. Thank you for joining us. My name is David Flaherty. I'm the CEO and founder of Magellan Strategies. And today's webinar is going to touch on transforming the community survey and how to engage diverse populations to interview more of them. Just so you know, Craig Haverback, who's also with our firm, is working behind the scenes. He'll be answering questions for you. This presentation will last about 15 minutes. And then when I'm done, we're happy to take questions. So I doubt the webinar will go more than 30 minutes. If you do have a question, in the upper right-hand corner, there's the Q&A button. Feel free to click on that and submit your questions. And I'd be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation when I am done. So with that, let's get started. And first and foremost, who are Magellan Strategies? We're a public opinion research firm. We work closely with local governments, special districts, school districts, and public policy organizations. We're located in Louisville, Colorado, and we've been around since 2007, about 15 years, and we've conducted about 3,000 surveys in Colorado. We want you to know we are proud members and financial supporters of the Colorado City and County Managers Association, CCI, as well as School Board Association and CASE. This is just a slide showing some of the folks that we've helped out or done projects for over our last 15 years in business. If this is the first time you've heard of us, welcome. But we just want you to know we're not new to these in this space, if you will. We've been doing our kind of survey research work and helping our clients for a very, very long time. Okay, let's get right to it. What are we really going to talk about today? Well, as many of you may know, in local government, the most common way to collect a survey or field a community survey in Colorado is many of you embrace and work with sending mail, sending the survey in the mail to a select or random sample of households in your community. Today, I'm going to just do an honest assessment of that data collection method versus MMS text survey data collection method, which we have really mastered in the last 2 years and are very comfortable with. So I just want to compare the two. We're here to kind of open up some eyes and perhaps have you consider other ways that you can really boost engagement in your community survey from your residents. So I'm going to walk through and talk about survey best practices. And the number one best practice for any survey for any purpose is giving the people that you're attempting to interview as many opportunities as possible to participate in the survey. It's a very simple fact. And mail surveys are the folks that practice and really push mail surveys. Their number one claim to fame is that a mail survey is the only way everybody has an opportunity to participate in the survey, with the thought behind that being you have 30,000 households. We're going to do a random sample of 4,000 to 5,000, let's say. And that was your one chance to participate, if you will, or the idea being we're going to concentrate on sending the mail survey to 4,000 households, and those other 26,000 will have other ways to participate, but they're not going to get full attention. But like that is the only way to give everybody an opportunity. We're not going to dispute that fact today. We believe that is correct and completely accurate. But we also compare that to another fact, that MMS text surveys compared to mail surveys will always have a larger percentage and total number of residents are invited to participate in the survey. You are going to reach out and touch and text more people in an MMS text community survey than you ever will by attempting to just send a mail piece. And let's get more into that detail. Okay, what you're looking at is a spreadsheet, and please understand we're going to send this presentation to all of you today. So again, thank you for participating. On the left-hand column is the adult population of 11 communities in Colorado of different size. These are the people we're attempting to measure. This is the adult population according to the 2020 census numbers. Now, a MMS text survey is sent to somebody's cell phone number, and the voter list or the voter registration list for every one of these communities has cell phone numbers on it. And for legitimate survey research purposes, you are allowed to send them a text as long as it's not in sort of a predictive dialer system. But the point is that on the current voter file, as of right now, this is the number of cell phones that are on the file compared for all of these individuals. So the coverage, if you will, from sending a text is that if you hired us to do a survey, we would send an invitation to participate in the community survey to nearly 30% of the population. Now, furthermore, we don't stop there. When we do a community survey, we're also going to append more cell phone numbers to the voter list. So understand that number could get up to 50 or 60%. Now, on the right hand of this table, what I'm showing is a Palco NRC/ETC mail survey. These are surveys that were done by these communities in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think everybody's familiar with Palco and ETC. They're kind of the community survey, mail survey leaders. And this is how many surveys that they mailed a survey to participate. 4,000 in Aurora, 3,000 in Fort Collins, 3,000 in Lakewood. And the number of households compared to the total number of households in those areas or in those cities or those communities, you can see that it ranges where they're really reaching out to no more than 3 or 4% of the population. Now, the smaller their community is, you get down here like Louisville, Erie, or North Glen, when you're mailing out 2,500 to 4,000 surveys, you are achieving that 30% reach mark or coverage mark. So the mail survey approach arguably is somewhat better in smaller communities, but for larger populations, it's really lacking, if you will. And then over here on the right-hand side is a number of completed interviews. So just as a comparison, MMS text is going to invite a lot more people to participate in the survey versus mail. Okay, best practice number 2, respondent interest in the engagement. What am I talking about? A survey, whether we do it on the phone, whether we do it from text, or whether we do it from mail, we're trying to create interest. We want respondents to be interested in the purpose of the survey so that they engage. This is 3 cover letters, technically, that are sent to these chosen households. It's a typical letter. You need them to open them up. This one from a Fort Collins city, community survey. On the right-hand side, it's in Spanish. On the left side, it's in English. Please fill out and, read this. You are one of few households. It'll tell you some of these. It'll take approximately 15 to 20 minutes to answer all the questions. This is for that Pueblo survey. Sometimes it can be longer than that. But this is really, you get a couple of postcards in advance of receiving this letter. Then you receive this letter and you're going to open it up and you're going to engage. That's the mail survey approach. Now, the MMS text survey approach, on the other hand, you don't have to worry about somebody opening up the mail. You don't have to worry about somebody having an interest. People are obviously attached to their phones. I think that you all on this will understand and appreciate that. But these are examples of 3 community survey invitations that we send. Hello, Glenwood Springs residents. The city of Glenwood Springs invites you to participate in a very important community survey about local issues and the quality of services and programs. Your responses are going to affect your community. It really is important. They're going to get it immediately. They are going to see it. And they're going to engage. And we're going to be probably touching some of your residents that are not part of your city email list or have a close relationship with the city. And in all honesty, that leads to better engagement. It's a professional looking communication as well. It's trustworthy. It's just the right way to communicate, and more people are going to engage rather than opening up on a piece of mail. And then over here on the right-hand side, this is an example of just how we will include the invitation once they click on to take it in English or in Spanish, so that we can reach, again, some of those diverse or hard to reach populations. And I'll get more to that in a little bit. Okay, survey best practice number 3. How difficult is it to respond and answer the questions? And again, have you ever tried to complete a mail survey? There's a lot of questions stuffed into the page and it's very tight. You got to get out your pen or your pencil and circle all these. Now, from a data collection standpoint, remember, this has to be key punched and processed. I'm not going to get in or measuring error rates of, entry and all that sort of stuff. But what I do want to show you is this is a survey from Pueblo, city of Pueblo, that was done, asking about their overall performance and so forth. Very legitimate and expected questions in a community survey. But down at the bottom, what are the specific areas of town that you do not feel safe? And you got to stick it in right here. Not a lot of room to write all that out. Why do you not feel safe there? You get one line, because right after that line below this, folks, is some more questions. Not the most inviting and easy way for respondents to provide their answers. Second example, city and county of Broomfield, for each of the following amenities maintained by the city, please rate the quality and its open space, trails, and so forth. Circle in your number. This is pretty tiny. It's tight. I know they've been doing this for a long time, but again, circle all of these and so forth. And then down at the bottom, what access barriers exist for the above amenities. So you have one line to fill in what you want to say and stuff it all in. Not the best way to capture qualitative data, open-ended, if you will. Compared to responding on your phone. As you can imagine, you scroll through your Facebook feeds, you scroll through your news. People are familiar with scrolling, speaking into their phone, and drag and drop options. For example, City of Glenwood Springs, quality of life. How would you rate the quality of life in Glenwood Springs? You know what I mean? Excuse me. A place to start a business, a place to raise children, etc., etc. It's very, very user-friendly, and it's easy for them to scroll through. They don't need a pencil or a circle and fill out. Open-ended questions, and we're big fans of these. We love to hear from residents speaking to the concerns that they have in our survey research. And what they're going to do is take their phone, they're going to hit that microphone button, and they're going to say, please describe the top issues, priorities, or problems that you think Glenwood Springs should address in the next 3 years. Affordable housing and so forth. And we're going to capture everything. It's a phenomenal, easy way for people to say what they want. They know how to use that phone. They know the easiest way of doing it. They're not typing it out. And then third, here's just another example of drag and drop. Here's 7 different categories that the city has to deal with in the budget. Please rank them what you think should be number 1 and the top priority, and which one should be the least. We can insert budget amounts in there. We can insert images. It's just a great way for the respondent to really let us know what and you as local government are thinking. Okay, the next example or best practice is about weighting so that the survey results are statistically and demographically representative of the community. What am I talking about? Mail surveys, unfortunately, have strong built-in biases towards oversampling, and what I mean by is like over-interviewing white, older individuals. It's just a fact, and it undermeasures and undercaptures sentiment of younger populations of color, and lower income. And I know all of you that are on here understand the difficulty to really get good data, especially opinion data, among those hard-to-reach populations and that diversity. But what am I talking about? A mail survey is guaranteed to come back with it being way too many interviews of seniors and not enough interviews of young families and so forth. And what do I mean by that? This is the 2021 unweighted data that was done by Polco, and I give them credit for producing these results so that they're very transparent about how the survey was conducted. This population norm, what is this? This is the U.S. Census Bureau's latest projections of what percentage of the adult population is 18 to 34 years old. So you can see here, 29% of the adults in Broomfield, in reality, and I do live in Broomfield, I am a resident, is what makes up the adult population. Now, the unweighted data, you can see the survey that came in had 15%. So out of all the return surveys and stuff that was done online, 15% of all respondents. So for them to make it demographically representative to the truth, they had to weight it up by about 15 points. That's a pretty big weighting amount. We typically want to do everything we can so that we don't have to weight it as much. So what they're doing is they're taking that 15%, they're basically doubling and replicating those 15% of interviews to make up for that 18 to 34, so it's whole. What population or what percentage of the Broomfield population is 55 years older? It's 28%. However, the mail survey, not surprisingly, 52 or half of all responses that they received were among seniors. So they had to weight that down by 22 points. That's a pretty big drag down that you really want to avoid if possible. And you think these things through your data collection method. Another example, again, Westminster, their 2020 residential survey. 18 to 34 should be about 34%, but their mail survey only produced 10%. So they had to weight that up 20 points. Seniors, 55 and older, the unweighted data, it should be 27%, but actually 61% of all responses that they got in the mail and other means were seniors. So they had to drag that down and reduce it by 30 points. That's a pretty big move. And then even the middle-aged folks, 35 to 54, they had to weight that from 28% up to 39%. Kind of uncomfortable numbers. Furthermore, let's look at Lakewood. Again, similar pattern. 2/3 of their respondents were 55 and older, and they had to drag that down by nearly 32 points. And they had to weight up younger voters. But also I would just show here of the Hispanic community, the population norm should be 18%, but only 7% of their sample was folks that were from the Hispanic community. So they had to weight that up a little bit too. So that weighting is pretty severe. And texting and the data collection method that we employ is much more, the data is quieter. It is much more representative. We will pick up at least 20% of seniors, so we may have to weight them up a little bit, but we sure as heck aren't weighting any subpopulation group or core population subgroup by 30 points. And then finally, I want to talk about engaging hard to read population subgroups. Texting is incredibly easy to use and really give these tough to reach populations so many opportunities to participate. What do I mean by that? Well, we use a voter list to be able to pull our sample and our phone numbers from. And from that voter list, we can get all kinds of information. We have somebody's resident address. It's very representative and nearly matches the USPS residential address file. But there's ways that we can append onto the file the latest census data from the American Community Survey that will tell us what areas of your community are Hispanic and are, really can be reached. So that we can send not just 1 or 2 invitations to participate, but 4 or 5 ways to participate to the Hispanic community or an African-American community or an Asian community. And then for low-income folks that are tough to get to, we know from that census data that's appended right back onto our file what areas have average household incomes being on the lower end. But usually when we're working with local government, they know where these communities are, and we can easily target them by sending them multiple texts. And on top of that all, we see the data coming back in of who's responded in real time, so that I know when I'm trying to weight our results, or our unweighted data, should I say, I know that's like, okay, we have 9% of our respondents are Hispanic. We want to get that really closer to 15%. We know exactly where that's coming in real time. You don't have to wait for a key puncher or a mail server to be processed over, 2 or 3 months. We know in real time where we are, and it's really easy for us to go out and continue to give extra opportunities for those low-income populations of color to be able to participate in the survey. And then what are some examples on why we're such big fans of texting to collect data and information? Here's just some ratios to understand. Town of Monument, their adult population is 7,300 people, and we interviewed 846 last year. Town of Wellington, 6,900 adults. We interviewed nearly 700 people. These are very strong and robust sample sizes to really understand, because, again, it's a demonstration, an example of people will engage an MMS text survey much more than a mail survey. City of Glenwood Springs, only 6,600 adults. We interviewed 861. And we actually broke a record in Glenwood by interviewing the largest number of Spanish-speaking only individuals in that community by sending out QR codes and other ways to participate through our Hispanic leaders there in that community. And that's just, these are small populations, but to give you the idea of how large a sample size you can get, Town of Erie, we're helping them with go through the process of switching their kind of government from statutory to home rule. 21,000 adults. We recently interviewed 1,500 of their residents on an issue that's not exactly the sexiest in the world. So again, these are just very strong sample sizes. I wanted to use those as an example. And with that, I am at 18 minutes and 30 seconds. I hope I did not speak too quickly. But again, this is what we mean by going through and reinventing or using the community survey, transforming that community survey. So it's really a tool and an incredible, important part of local government in aligning doing their work and aligning all of the things that they do with the wishes of the community in a better manner, rather than sort of limiting or inhibiting the ability for your residents to be able to participate. So with that said, let's see if we have some questions. Okay, here's one. Are there any survey response biases with MMS text survey data collection? There always are. We usually are a little bit light on seniors, and we classify seniors as 65 and older. But the nice thing about texting data collection, and we would not do it if it wasn't effective, on average, we're going to, in any population that we are trying to measure or interview, seniors are going to make up about at least 20% of our responses. If that's, the truth is that it's about a quarter. So we are going to weight up a little bit. And sometimes we may be a little bit low on 18 to 25, just younger folks, you know what I mean, are not as interested in local government. But regarding income and regarding other key hard to reach populations, look, it's always difficult to interview minority populations and populations of color, no matter what the data collection method is. However, we really go the extra mile on doing that so that we're making up, because we can just keep pouring into the system by sending them texts. And so that when we have our unweighted data, it's much more closer to their truth and representative. So. Okay, another question. Has Magellan ever used MMS text surveys to survey only low-income people of color or people that have little or no health insurance? Yeah, those are some hard-to-reach populations. We do public policy surveys for organizations, especially healthcare, that are looking to really try to get a measurement of opinion of those hard-to-reach populations. We did do a survey in 2021 where we interviewed over 500 folks that had very little or no insurance that would have qualified for Medicaid on a survey regarding rural hospitals. So we do have a proof of concept of really going after that tough population. It did take us more than obviously just one or two texts to get people to engage. And the image we used changed. We tested a lot of different things. But the beauty of texting is that since it wasn't a phone survey, we can send a lot of these texts and we don't have to worry about cost being an inhibitor, because it doesn't cost us that much to send these to be able to get and penetrate some of those hard to reach populations. Okay, let's see. Question. If a resident doesn't receive a text message, would they still have an opportunity to complete the survey? Good question. Yes, they would. All of our community surveys and all of our text surveys, mostly when we're doing for governments and school districts or special districts, what we do is that we're going to be doing the texts and sending them out. But the communications or public information officers of local governments will send out an email perhaps 2 days ahead in advance, notifying everybody that they have on their list. And we don't need to touch that list, saying, hey, on March 3rd, Tuesday at around in the afternoon, we're going to be launching this year's community survey. And you can participate it in 3 ways. Some of you will receive an email just like this with a link taking the survey. Some of you will also receive a text that's going to look like this. And then some other ones of you will be able to, it'll be posted on the town website, if you will, very prominently. It'll start on this date and it'll end on that date. So that's always baked in and it's part of the data collection process. So, because it's true, we're never going to have everybody's phone number. We're never, ever going to be able to hit every single person on text only. It just doesn't work that way. So we do an all of the above approach. And we usually don't do phones or phone interviews for community surveys, just because we're talking about our surveys are usually anywhere from 60 to 100 questions, if not longer. And people will hang in there engaged. You can't interview folks that long on the phone. So good question. Another question. How long does it take for Magellan to conduct an MMS community survey? To be honest with you folks, the longest it really takes in the process is finalizing the questionnaire. We have 2 projects going on right now, one in Huerfano County, one in Salida. And we're taking our time to really make sure that all of the department heads and everybody on staff, the questions are being asked that they would like asked, so that they're getting data to help them do their jobs better. That's going to take the most time. But once that survey questionnaire is finalized, and I'm talking about, 75 to 100 questions, off you go. We're going to need about a couple of days to program and get the survey up. We're going to send you the test link to see what's going to happen. But we'll usually keep a survey open for at least 10 days to 2 weeks long, sending multiple reminders to folks, letting them know, hey, this survey's still out there. And we always send a text and reminder in conjunction with emails from the town or the local government saying, hey, it's Friday, and today at 10 o'clock, we're going to be pulling down the data. And believe me, we never shut the survey down. We never want anybody to go and click on a link and sorry, it's shut. You didn't get your opportunity. You always leave those open. But the bottom line is we'll collect the data for about 2 weeks. And then once we pull it down and done, you're going to get data immediately after that. And, at the tops, 10 days, 2 weeks for us to turn it around, to do our deliverables, a presentation. We're not, open-ended verbatims matched back to demographically to respondents so that you can get a sense of which community you're saying certain things. But I would say overall, it's about a 4 to 5 week period from not including the time to finalize the questionnaire. And that's just really getting ahead of that. And the speed of that is really determined on the interest and the management of the town, of the community, or the government we're helping out. Do we have opt-in permission prior to sending the text, or are you exempt? Well, the provider that we use to send our texts out not everybody is opted in. But because this communication is on behalf of survey research, it is all compliant with the CAN spam and the federal regulations to do this. Recently, the federal government has asked folks that send texts, this is mostly for the political space, to register who is sending the text, where their business is, or who the campaign is. We actually did that a couple last week, actually. We have registered Magellan strategies so that if they wanted to check back and see who is sending these texts, they can tie it back to us. We're believers in transparency. We want people to know who we're sending and why we're sending it to and on behalf of. But we've never had an issue with somebody saying, oh, you're spamming. You can obviously opt out because most folks do appreciate, honestly, that we're reaching them and they've never been reached before by their local government simply because they haven't lined up for a listserv or they weren't one of the chosen few that received a mail survey. Okay. How are we doing on time here, folks? Okay. Couple more questions here. How does Magellan know if the people they contact are within the town or city that they are texting, since they are using cell phone numbers? Well, as I mentioned, we use a voter list, a current voter list, also called a voter database or a list of registered voters. On the Colorado voter file, there are everybody's residential and mailing address. I know exactly where they live, and we can geocode from the voter list exactly where people live. Also on that voter file is your precinct, what town or city you live in, what special district you are registered to vote in. It's a wealth of information, folks. And that voter list is really how we don't really worry about drawing sample or sending text to people that may not live there. At the same time, some of our sample is going to have out-of-state area codes. But like, for example, my voter, if you go to the voter file, I'm on there in Magellan Strategies. I have a 703 area code when I used to work in Washington, D.C., and then I moved here 15 years ago. So it's a Virginia area code. But because of the voter file, I know is like, no, I've voted in a lot of elections. I'm definitely a resident. It's just my cell phone is not going to work. So again, that's how we append and don't worry about geography. And there's also many times in our surveys where we will include the list of the HOAs. If it's a small community, yeah, give us the list. You can scroll down, make it very easy for somebody to know so that you can actually aggregate response data to a neighborhood. It's really great. We're big fans of it. And it's just a lot easier to work off of rather than perhaps what some of our other, friends do, which is use the United States Postal Service's resident address file. And we've compared the two, and in all honesty, there's very little difference between the two lists. Let's see. Benchmarking. Okay. One more question. Does Magellan have the capability to do benchmarking, which is comparing community survey responses to other community surveys in Colorado across the country? Here's how we handle benchmarking, folks. We do not claim to have a database of 500 community surveys across the country like Paul Coe or some of these other folks that do. However, what we do is everybody's community survey is public. And it's depending on the size and the makeup of your community, we're going to just look up and look at the typical questions. How would you rate your community as a place to live, a place to retire, a place to raise children, a place for shopping? We can get all that information regardless of what other firm may have done a community survey because it's public information. Anything that's out there, this data was generated by the local governments. It's on their public domain. And we're going to do the legwork to really compare it. So like our Glenwood Springs community survey, for example, they requested benchmarking. We compared it to Rifle, to Steamboat, to other communities that are mountain communities of the same size. What we will not do or do not encourage is comparing it nationally without any sort of making sure you're comparing it to a comparable community. So if you're a community on the Front Range or a small mountain community, that's really all you should be comparing it to. You shouldn't be comparing it or benchmarking the responses of a community of 20,000 people in Colorado to Dallas or a small village in upstate New York or Vermont for that matter. So we do benchmarking. No, we don't have a massive database, but our team will go ahead out and look at and see how do you compare to some other community surveys. So, all right, I think that's about it. I'm sure you're rushing back to work or finishing your sandwich. And I just want to thank all of you today for joining and listening to how we are trying to reinvent and transform the community survey so that you can do a better job of understanding and measuring the opinions of the residents you all serve. So we're big fans of local government. We know you're all tired with COVID and a lot going on. So again, thank you for all you do. In the upper right-hand corner, also there's some handouts, but we will be sending this presentation to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.